far away, beneath the slopes of ancient hills. Hollow places open where rock meets shadow. At first, they are nothing more than natural cavities, formed by the slow patience of water, wind, and time. Yet for early humans, these cavities are more than shelters. They become thresholds, liminal spaces where the surface world gives way to an underworld of stillness. When people step inside, they cross from light into darkness, from ordinary living into something charged with deeper significance. The earliest evidence of humans making use of such caves dates back tens of thousands of years. Archaeologists uncover traces not only of habitation, but also of ritual. Small fires once burned inside, leaving blackened stains on ceilings. Ash deposits still rest in quiet corners. Sometimes, bones of animals lie scattered across the ground, mixed with stone flakes from tool-making. The caves serve dual purposes, practical and symbolic. Shelter from wind, cold, and rain is obvious, yet the repeated return to the same spaces hints at meaning beyond survival. Archaeological layers in caves like Chauvet in France or Sulawesi in Indonesia show an astonishing continuity. In some places, groups visited again and again over thousands of years. To step into such a chamber is to step into the same environment their ancestors had known, with the same stone walls enclosing them. These walls, unchanged through generations, may have seemed eternal. For people who lived amid fragile huts of wood and hide, the permanence of rock was powerful. Caves gave a sense of timelessness, an anchor amid shifting climates and migrations. Stone surfaces bear marks of intentional shaping. Early groups sometimes widened entrances, smoothed floors, or arranged rocks into simple platforms. Such changes are small, yet they shift a natural hollow into something closer to a human-made chamber. These earliest modifications are subtle, almost invisible to casual eyes, but archaeologists notice patterns. Entrances are cleared of rubble, hearths are set at points where smoke can escape, and side niches are prepared to hold objects. Over time, these small acts accumulate, transforming wild caves into proto-temples. The presence of symbolic material deepens this interpretation. In some caves, ochre fragments are found, red, yellow, or brown minerals ground into powder. This ochre is not needed for survival, yet it appears consistently in contexts of ritual and art, at sites like Blombos in South Africa. Long before cave temples emerge in Asia or Europe, pieces of ochre bear deliberate incisions. By the time humans begin decorating cave interiors, ochre is already charged with symbolic weight. To carry it deep underground, away from the light of day, suggests a practice of significance, perhaps linked to transformation, identity, or cosmology. Unresolved mysteries remain. Why did certain caves attract human groups while others, equally accessible, remained unused? Scholars debate whether the choice was aesthetic, based on acoustics, shape, or the presence of water, or cosmological, tied to mythic ideas about underworlds. Some suggest caves symbolized womb-like places of rebirth, while others argue they represented entrances to spirits of earth and ancestors. Without written records, no answer is final. Yet the consistency of return, generation after generation, points to a shared perception of caves as special. Planetary forces also frame this story. During glacial cycles of the Pleistocene, vast sheets of ice spread across continents. Sea levels dropped, revealing new land. Forests advanced and retreated as climates swung between cold and warm phases. In these shifting environments, caves remained stable. Hills and cliffs endured, even as rivers changed course. A group could migrate for hundreds of kilometers, yet certain caves might still await them, unchanged across lifetimes. These places became fixed points in a moving world. Archaeologists sometimes find deposits of broken tools in cave floors. Blades or scrapers left behind show no sign of accident. They are carefully placed, sometimes arranged in patterns, sometimes deposited near paintings or hearths. One interpretation is that these tools served as offerings. To leave behind a useful implement, essential for survival, was a deliberate act of sacrifice. It bound the living to the place, embedding memory into stone. One lesser-known example comes from caves in Iberia, where stalagmites were broken and arranged in circular forms. The effort required was immense, and the structures serve no obvious domestic function. They appear to be symbolic constructions, rings of stone deep within darkness, far from sunlight. Such features suggest that caves were not only places to mark walls with art, but also landscapes reshaped within, mirroring ritual ideas. The scale of human use is striking. In some regions, decorated caves appear within walking distance of one another, suggesting networks of sanctuaries across valleys. A single valley might host multiple decorated sites, each visited at different times of year. People may have moved between them with the rhythm of migration or seasonal hunting. The caves thus form part of larger cultural landscapes, nodes of meaning in territories stretching hundreds of kilometers. And yet, each cave holds silence. The moment a group leaves, darkness and stillness return. The flicker of firelight vanishes, the air cools, and only stone remains. For tens of thousands of years, these cycles repeat: arrival, ritual, departure, silence. Today, archaeologists re-enter these spaces, finding footprints fossilized in soft clay, left by children or adults long gone. Each print is a frozen moment, a step taken deep within a cave tens of millennia ago, preserved in sediment. Such fragile evidence bridges vast time, reminding us that people once paused here, just as we do now. The mystery endures because the meaning cannot be fully recovered. Did early humans speak words of prayer? Or was the act of entering itself sufficient? Did they believe spirits dwelled within? Or did they see caves as symbolic maps of the cosmos? The evidence suggests many possibilities, none exclusive. The repetition across continents, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, suggests that the idea of caves as sacred was nearly universal. Whether arising from shared ancestry or independent invention, it reflects a deep human instinct to seek significance in hidden places. Planetary observation deepens this view. As glaciers expanded, humans followed herds across exposed plains, sometimes walking distances equal to entire continents. Yet amid this movement, caves provided continuity. They were fixed, rooted in geology, immune to seasonal flux. To step inside was to touch something older than one's people, older than one's language, older than memory itself. In this sense, caves served as the earliest temples, not because they were built by human hands, but because they held human awe in the face of geological eternity. The first section of this story closes with that awareness. Long before elaborate carvings or monumental facades, before Ajanta or Ellora, before Petra or Mogao, there were simply dark hollows beneath hills. Humans entered them, lit small fires, left behind tools, traced outlines with ochre. They returned again and again, generation after generation. And in doing so, they began a tradition of sacred space that continues into the present. A tradition rooted in stone, silence, and shadow. When a flame is struck inside a cave, darkness bends. Shadows stretch and recoil across uneven walls. The surface is of stone, usually still and silent, suddenly come alive. This transformation, the interplay of firelight and rock, marks one of the most significant shifts in human history. In these places, walls become more than barriers. They turn into canvases. Archaeological discoveries reveal how early humans mastered the controlled use of fire, not just for warmth or cooking, but also for illumination and expression. Torches made from resinous wood, lamps carved from stone, and bundles of twigs dipped in animal fat all appear in cave contexts. At Lascaux, charcoal remains of torches lie scattered on the ground, as if dropped by hands that moved quickly from chamber to chamber. At Altamira, small stone lamps filled with fat and a wick of moss are found, blackened by flame. These objects allowed people to carry light deeper, farther than the flicker of a surface hearth. What they illuminated was extraordinary. On the walls of Chauvet Cave, some 36,000 years ago, lions, rhinos, mammoths, and horses emerge in sweeping strokes of ochre and charcoal. In Sulawesi, in Indonesia, hand stencils and wild pigs appear on walls dated to more than 40,000 years ago. These paintings are not scattered randomly. They cluster in places where light interacts with curves of stone. The shimmer of flame makes animals appear to move, their outlines trembling as if alive. Scholars debate whether this effect was intentional. Did artists choose surfaces because they noticed how firelight animated them? Some argue yes. The positioning of certain bison and horses seems designed for movement, placed where the wall bulges like muscles in motion. The cave becomes a theater of shadows, with fire as the performer, stone as the stage, and painted animals as the actors. One lesser-known detail comes from Chauvet, where multiple layers of painting overlap. A bear was painted. Then, centuries later, a horse was added over it, and then still later, another figure. This palimpsest of images suggests not a single event, but a tradition spanning generations. Each return to the cave meant adding, reinterpreting, and reanimating old images under new firelight. The cave was a living archive, renewed by flame. In many places, artists used engraved lines rather than paint. When the light of a torch moves across incised grooves, shadows deepen and brighten, creating the illusion of movement. Without firelight, the engravings nearly vanish. This suggests that the art was designed to be seen in flickering light, not in steady daylight. The medium itself, darkness punctuated by flame, was part of the experience. The presence of so many animal figures raises questions. Why these creatures, and not others? Some were prey, vital to survival. Others, like lions or rhinos, were dangerous predators rarely hunted. Perhaps their images carried symbolic power, embodying qualities of strength or danger. Some researchers suggest that these paintings record mythic visions or shamanic journeys. Others view them as early expressions of knowledge, teaching younger members of the group to recognize forms, patterns, and behaviors. The true meaning is lost, but the choice to bring such images into the dark reveals a deliberate act of significance. Planetary cycles add another layer. During glacial maxima, vast herds roamed the plains of Europe and Asia. Mammoths, bison, and horses dominated the landscape. By painting them on cave walls, humans inscribed their world onto stone. It was a form of mapping, echoing the great herds outside. Yet in the safety of the cave, these animals became more than food. They became symbols of abundance, danger, and survival. Another unresolved mystery lies in the act of creation itself. How did artists work in such darkness? Experiments show that small lamps provide light but cast uneven shadows. A torch burns for only 20 minutes before needing replacement. To paint entire chambers, artists must have worked in teams, coordinating flame, pigment, and vision. Did they sing as they painted, their voices echoing in rhythm with their strokes? Or did silence rule, broken only by the hiss of fire? The evidence remains silent. The technology of pigment was advanced. Minerals were ground into fine powders, mixed with fat or water, then applied with brushes, pads of fur, or simply blown through hollow bones. At Chauvet, fingerprints are visible where artists pressed pigment onto walls. At El Castillo in Spain, red discs appear as dots sprayed from the mouth, leaving outlines where the artist's lips met stone. These marks are among the earliest known examples of human breath turned into art. One small but striking discovery comes from Altamira, where the ceiling of the Great Hall is covered with bison. To reach these surfaces, artists lay on their backs, painting upward by the glow of lamps. The physical effort, the strain of lying still in darkness, suggests a dedication that transcends mere decoration. It was an act of devotion, transforming ceilings into starry fields of animal forms. The scale of these painted chambers is immense. Some caves extend hundreds of meters underground, with multiple galleries. To walk through them is to pass through layers of imagery, each chamber holding new scenes. For early humans, the journey itself, moving deeper, carrying light, confronting painted walls, was part of the ritual. The experience was immersive, surrounding them with animals larger than life. Fire also left another trace: soot on ceilings. In many caves, thick black deposits line the upper rock, evidence of centuries of burning torches. These darkened ceilings record the presence of countless visitors, each carrying flame, each adding to the accumulated smoke of ritual. Today, scientists analyze soot layers to reconstruct how often caves were visited, building chronologies of use over thousands of years. Planetary observation reminds us that at the same time these images were painted, Earth's climate oscillated, ice sheets advanced and retreated, altering landscapes. Yet, within caves, firelight created a stable microcosm. No matter the cold outside, within the chamber the glow of flame remained constant. For humans who faced relentless change, caves offered a timeless environment where meaning could be fixed in stone. The story of firelight on cave walls is thus more than art history. It is the earliest evidence of humans transforming their environment, not just for survival, but for imagination. The cave became a canvas, the flame a brush, the darkness a frame. This transformation laid the foundation for later temples, rituals, and monuments. It showed that humans were not content to live only in the world as given. They sought to create worlds within, lit by their own fire. As the torches guttered and lamps dimmed, silence returned. The painted animals faded into shadow, waiting for the next flame. Across millennia, this cycle repeated. Firelight, painting, silence. Today, when modern eyes glimpse these same walls, the sensation is unchanged. The animals stir again, shadows dance, and the deep bond between humanity, fire, and stone becomes visible once more. Deep within the corridors of ancient caves, the air changes, sounds shift. A single word, whispered near an arching wall, echoes back with force. A hum, sustained for a few seconds, grows louder as it bounces between stone surfaces. For early humans, these effects must have been startling. Darkness combined with sound to create an experience unlike anything on the surface. The caves were not only places of sight, but of resonance. Archaeologists and acousticians studying prehistoric sanctuaries find repeated evidence of deliberate use of sound. In decorated caves such as Lascaux, Nio, and Rouffignac, the placement of paintings aligns with chambers of remarkable acoustic qualities, where echoes amplify, where low tones rumble. There the most intricate images appear. It seems that early humans explored not only with their eyes, but with their voices, selecting spaces where sound itself became part of ritual. One famous experiment took place in the 1980s at Le Portel in France. Researchers sang, clapped, and played simple instruments inside. They discovered that certain chambers produced extraordinary reverberation, enhancing rhythm and pitch. The resonance was strongest near painted panels of animals. This alignment suggests intentional choice. Early visitors may have noticed how sound filled these places, and linked that power to their painted visions. At Nio Cave, in the French Pyrenees, a long gallery leads to the Salon Noir, the Black Hall. Here, deep in total darkness, horses and bison cover the walls. Acousticians measured an unusual echo, a prolonged resonance that lingers after a clap or shout. Such qualities would have magnified any chanting or drumming. Imagine a group entering, torches flickering, voices raised. The walls respond, as if alive, answering with sound. This raises an unresolved question. Were caves chosen for decoration because of their acoustics, or did art itself invite performance? Perhaps both. Some scholars argue that caves were instruments in their own right, played by human voice. Others suggest that echoing spaces were viewed as portals to the spirit world, with sounds interpreted as replies from unseen beings. No conclusion is final. The evidence is suggestive, but not definitive. Lesser-known discoveries come from sites without paintings, but with evidence of sound use. In some Iberian caves, percussion marks appear on stalactites and stalagmites. When struck, these formations ring like stone bells. Archaeologists call them lithophones. At places such as Nerja Cave in Spain, clusters of percussion marks remain visible. Early groups may have drummed on these formations, filling the cave with rhythms. The walls themselves became instruments. The planetary scale adds perspective. During glacial periods, much of Europe lay under tundra and steppe. Open landscapes carried sound across vast distances. Thunder rolled. Wind howled. Herds stampeded. Inside caves, however, sound behaved differently. Enclosed stone chambers captured it, multiplied it, transformed it. In a world where sound guided survival, alerting to predators, signaling to companions, the acoustic uniqueness of caves would have carried deep significance. Firelight enhanced these effects. The crackle of flames, the drip of water, the shuffle of feet, all combined with echoes. A whispered word could seem to come from behind, though no one stood there. For people unfamiliar with the physics of reflection, such experiences were mysterious. They may have interpreted echoes as voices of spirits or ancestors. The boundary between natural and supernatural blurred. One detail, often overlooked, is that many hand stencils appear near echo-rich zones. Blown pigment around hands creates a negative imprint, as if a person marked their presence against stone. To place these hands where echoes respond may signal a dialogue, an attempt to leave both visual and sonic traces. The wall holds the handprint and gives back the voice. Experiments in reconstructed caves show that sound could also guide movement. In complete darkness, people can navigate by listening to echoes. A clap or call reveals whether a chamber is wide or narrow, high or low. Early groups may have used this instinctively, choosing routes not only by memory but by sound. In this way, caves were explored as much by ear as by eye. Another unresolved mystery lies in the role of rhythm. Did groups gather to drum and chant, synchronizing their bodies to resonant chambers? Such activities could induce trance-like states, altering perception. Some researchers propose that rituals combined visual art, firelight, and rhythmic sound into a multi-sensory experience. This would make caves early theaters of the sacred, long before temples of stone rose under the open sky. One striking case is Arcy-sur-Curé in France, where bare bones were arranged in patterns near decorated walls. The chamber has powerful resonance. The combination of bones, paintings, and sound suggests a complex ritual environment. Whether honoring animals, ancestors, or cosmic forces, the cave united multiple senses into one experience. Planetary forces once more provide context. As glaciers advanced, human groups sought meaning in a changing world. The deep rumble of ice cracking, the roar of distant rivers, the howl of winds, all were immense sounds of nature. In caves, echoes condensed this scale. The rumble of a drum might resemble thunder. The resonance of a voice might recall wind across cliffs. To recreate planetary forces in miniature may have felt like participating in cosmic cycles. Modern acoustic studies confirm the precision of placement. In some caves, decorated panels lie exactly at points of strongest resonance, while undecorated walls lie in acoustically flat zones. This correlation is unlikely to be chance. It shows that early humans understood sound intuitively, if not scientifically. They selected places where voices grew powerful, where sound seemed alive. The silence after is equally important. When chanting ceased, the cave returned to stillness. The contrast between resonance and quiet would have been profound. People might have felt they had awakened the cave itself, only for it to sleep again. This cycle, sound, echo, silence, paralleled cycles of firelight and darkness, presence and absence. A lesser-known but telling example comes from Chavin de Huantar in the Andes, though much later in time. Here, stone galleries produce resonant effects similar to Ice Age caves. Conch shell trumpets amplify and echo through passageways. The continuity across cultures suggests a universal human fascination with sound in enclosed stone spaces. Thus, the corridors of ancient caves were not merely passages, but resonant instruments. They shaped human experience, blending sight, sound, and shadow. The echoes heard there were among the first encounters with natural amplification, inspiring awe and mystery. For those who walked deep into darkness, carrying torches and voices, the cave was not silent. It was alive, answering back, joining in their ritual. Deep within many cave temples, one element recurs again and again: the presence of water. Drops fall from ceilings into small pools, creating ripples in silence. Underground streams wind through corridors, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden behind walls of stone. Moisture beads across mineral surfaces, leaving shining traces. For early humans, such features must have been both practical and symbolic. They offered fresh water for survival, yet they also suggested mysteries. Water appearing in darkness, flowing where the sun never reached. Archaeologists have documented that some of the most elaborately decorated caves are located near springs or within limestone systems rich in underground water. In France, at Lascaux and Font-de-Gaume, paintings are found close to points where water once seeped through rock. In Spain, Altamira's chambers also connect to zones of dripping water. The presence of moisture not only preserved pigments, but also shaped the atmosphere, creating echoes of dripping that added to the sensory experience. The link between water and ritual has deep roots. Across cultures, flowing water often symbolizes fertility, renewal, and life itself. In the darkness of caves, drops falling from stalactites could have been seen as gifts of the earth, steady and eternal. Pools might have seemed sacred mirrors, reflecting torchlight and painted figures above. Even today, to stand inside a wet cave and watch ripples shimmer is to feel something timeless. Lesser-known examples highlight how water-shaped ritual design. In certain European caves, footprints preserved in soft clay led directly to pools. These footprints include those of children, suggesting that entire groups entered together. At Chauvet, scientists found that pools contained fragments of ochre, as if pigments had been intentionally mixed into the water. This may have created colored reflections, blurring art and nature into one shifting vision. Unresolved questions remain about intentional alignment. Did people choose caves specifically because of their springs? Or did meaning accumulate over time as they encountered water underground? Some archaeologists argue that the steady dripping resembled the rhythms of rainfall above, connecting surface and underworld. Others suggest that pools symbolized portals, thresholds between worlds. Without texts, these remain hypotheses. What is clear is that water's presence was not incidental. It shaped how humans experienced these places. On a planetary scale, water cycles governed everything. During the Pleistocene, glaciers expanded and melted, releasing torrents that carved valleys and fed underground rivers. Sea levels rose and fell, exposing new coastlines and drowning old ones. In this shifting context, underground water offered stability. A spring in a cave might flow for centuries, even as climate outside fluctuated. To return to such a place would have been to return to continuity. Archaeologists have even noted mineral formations, stalagmites and stalactites, adorned with pigment. Sometimes these formations are naturally shaped by water into columns, curtains, or thin sheets. When humans added color, they enhanced what water had already created. Firelight flickering across wet surfaces produced dazzling effects, as if stone itself glowed. Some formations may have been seen as beings, animated by water and light. A small but remarkable discovery comes from caves in Romania, where calcite formations were broken deliberately, then rearranged near water sources. These arrangements serve no domestic purpose. They suggest symbolic actions, perhaps marking a sacred spot. To break and reassemble stone shaped by water might have been a way of interacting with Earth's creative processes, participating in cycles of growth and flow. In India, much later, elaborate rock-cut temples such as Ellora and Ajanta also emphasize water. Channels were carved to direct rain into cisterns. Caves were positioned near rivers or springs. The continuity from Paleolithic sanctuaries to later Buddhist monasteries suggests a long-standing connection between water and sacred caves. Even in historical times, monks valued not only isolation, but also access to flowing water for ritual and daily life. The symbolic link between dripping water and fertility is nearly universal. Some researchers propose that stalactites resembled breasts, with drops as nourishing milk of the earth. Whether this interpretation holds is debated, but the imagery fits within broader human associations of caves with wombs, rebirth, and life-giving forces. In this way, caves were not only shelters but also metaphors of creation. Planetary observation deepens this perspective. When glaciers locked water as ice, sea levels dropped, exposing vast new lands. When ice melted, floods surged, reshaping continents. Humans living through these cycles must have seen water as both destructive and sustaining. Underground, however, water appeared constant, gentle dripping, slow mineral growth, pools that persisted. Caves offered a vision of stability amid global flux. Another unresolved mystery is whether water sounds guided ritual. The steady drip creates natural rhythms, sometimes resonant, sometimes delicate. Combined with chanting or drumming, these rhythms might have become part of ceremonies. Experiments in modern caves show how dripping water merges with human voice, producing haunting harmonies. Early humans may have listened deeply, hearing in water the voice of the earth. One lesser-known but fascinating case comes from the Nerja cave in Spain. Here, scientists discovered cave art dated to more than 40,000 years ago near zones of heavy dripping. Some speculate that the paintings were placed where water ran over them, creating shimmering movement. In such cases, art and environment were inseparable. The figures came alive not only in firelight, but also in flowing water. Water also influenced preservation. Pigments survive better in damp conditions where temperatures remain constant. In this sense, the same water that inspired ritual also safeguarded its traces for us to study. Without underground streams and humid air, many paintings might have vanished millennia ago. The persistence of art is thus tied to planetary hydrology. The footprints preserved in clay remind us of personal encounters. To walk barefoot through a wet cave, feeling cool mud between toes, was a sensory experience. For children especially, this may have been both thrilling and sacred. Their prints remain today, frozen in time, testifying to moments of presence near underground water. These small traces humanize vast chambers, linking ritual grandeur with everyday bodies. Firelight reflecting on pools created illusions. A torch's glow, doubled in rippling water, danced on ceilings. Figures painted above might seem to move, their reflections distorted below. For people seeking contact with unseen forces, such illusions may have confirmed belief. The cave became a hall of mirrors, where water and fire collaborated in spectacle. In broader perspective, the union of fire, stone, and water inside caves parallels cosmic elements, sun, earth, and rain outside. Humans recreated in miniature the cycles that sustained life. To gather in such a place was to align with planetary order, to participate in rhythms larger than any individual. Thus, sacred water and underground springs are not peripheral details, but central to the mystery of cave temples. They shaped atmosphere, inspired symbolism, guided ritual, and preserved memory. They reminded people that life depends on hidden flows, that beneath solid rock, water moves eternally. In the stillness of a cave, each drop was a heartbeat of the earth. On the floors of ancient caves, scattered among ash and footprints, archaeologists often uncover small objects of stone. These are not ordinary fragments. They are finely crafted blades, scrapers, and points, tools that would have been indispensable for survival. Yet many of them show no sign of wear. Some are broken deliberately, placed in positions that suggest intentional offering. For reasons still debated, humans left behind their most precious implements inside dark chambers, where they would never be used again. The act of abandonment is striking. A stone blade required hours of careful work, selecting raw material, striking flakes at the right angle, shaping a cutting edge, all demanded skill and experience. To simply leave such an object on a cave floor seems irrational from a practical standpoint. But viewed symbolically, the act gains meaning. To deposit a tool was to give up something of value, to sacrifice efficiency for ritual. Archaeological evidence supports this view. At Grotte du Placard in France, finely made spear points were found in layers associated with painted walls. At Chauvet, fragments of scrapers lie near decorated panels. In some cases, tools appear to have been placed deliberately in cracks or niches, as if inserted into the body of the cave itself. The pattern suggests intention, not accident. One lesser-known discovery comes from Isteritz Cave in the Pyrenees, where a cache of carefully made blades was found beneath a painted ceiling. None showed signs of use. Some had been snapped into pieces before deposition. Such behavior points to ritual killing of objects, a practice known from many cultures worldwide. By breaking a tool, its usefulness is ended, and it becomes symbolic, a gift to spirits or ancestors. The unresolved question is why tools, rather than other objects, became offerings. Some scholars argue that tools represented human skill and control over nature. To give one back to the earth was to acknowledge dependence on forces beyond human mastery. Others propose that tools, often used in hunting, carried the essence of animals killed. By leaving them behind, hunters balanced the taking of life with acts of return. The exact reasoning cannot be recovered, yet the pattern is clear. Tools were more than instruments. They were symbols of exchange between humans and the unseen. Planetary observation broadens the perspective. During Ice Age cycles, survival required constant adaptation. Tools were lifelines, cutting hides for shelter, shaping wood for spears, preparing meat for food. To part with them in ritual was a powerful gesture, equivalent to surrendering one's security. This act reflects the deep human instinct to bind survival with spirituality, to link the material and the sacred. Another layer of evidence lies in the arrangement of tools. At some sites, objects are grouped in small clusters. At others, single blades are placed alone, far from hearths or habitation debris. These isolated deposits suggest that the act of offering was not casual but ceremonial. A person may have walked deep into the cave, chosen a particular niche, and left a blade in silence, then turned back without it. In addition to stone, bone and antler artifacts also appear in caves. At Grotte du Mas d'Azil, decorated antler points were deposited alongside pigments. At La Madeleine, pierced bones and carved figurines were found near hearths. Some of these objects may have served as personal ornaments, yet their deposition echoes the logic of stone tools, valuable items given up in darkness. A lesser-known but fascinating case comes from Hohlefels Cave in Germany, where small carved figurines were discovered. Among them is the famous Venus figurine, dated to around 40,000 years ago. Though not a tool, its deposition within a cave resonates with the same theme: meaningful objects left behind, unseen for millennia. This suggests that caves served as repositories of symbolic artifacts, not mere shelters. The act of leaving tools can also be viewed through the lens of memory. Each deposit marked a visit, a presence, an intention. Over time, caves accumulated layers of offerings, creating archives of human devotion. For later visitors, to see old tools on the ground may have reinforced the sanctity of place. Each deposit joined a lineage, connecting generations through shared ritual. Unresolved mysteries persist. Were tools offered by individuals, families, or entire groups? Did specific roles exist, with certain people designated to make deposits? The lack of clear patterns leaves these questions open. What is known is that offerings span wide regions and long timescales. From France to Spain, from Germany to Siberia, the practice recurs. Such consistency suggests a deep-seated cultural logic. whether inherited or reinvented. Planetary changes frame this story once more. As glaciers advanced, humans migrated, sometimes across thousands of kilometers. Yet they carried with them not only physical tools, but symbolic practices. The leaving of blades in caves reflects continuity across distance. Even as landscapes shifted, the ritual of offering persisted. It became part of the shared human repertoire, linking people across continents through acts of devotion. Some archaeologists compare these deposits to later votive offerings in temples, where coins, figurines, or candles are left behind. The continuity is compelling. Though separated by tens of thousands of years, the human instinct is similar: to give something up in sacred space, marking a connection with forces greater than oneself. One small but telling discovery comes from caves in Cantabria, where a flint blade was found deliberately embedded in clay beside hand stencils. The juxtaposition of tool and image suggests integration of visual and material ritual. A hand pressed against stone, a tool left in earth. Both gestures marked human presence in enduring form. The scale of these deposits is modest. No cave has yielded vast hordes of tools. Instead, offerings are few, scattered, and personal. This suggests that meaning lay not in accumulation, but in the act itself. Each deposit was complete in its own right, a symbolic dialogue between human and cave. The silence following such acts would have been profound. A person places a blade in a niche, steps back, watches torchlight glimmer on stone, then turns away. Behind them, the object remains, untouched, waiting. For millennia, it lies there, until modern archaeologists uncover it. What was once sacred offering becomes data for science. Yet the sense of gesture endures. On a planetary level, these deposits remind us that human survival and meaning were inseparable. Tools were extensions of the body, amplifying hands and minds. To relinquish them in ritual was to acknowledge that survival alone was not enough. Humans sought connection, reciprocity, and balance with the world around them. Thus, the stone tools left as silent offerings reveal one of the earliest forms of ritual sacrifice. They testify to a worldview in which the practical and the sacred were intertwined. Every blade abandoned in darkness speaks of this union, of humans giving up what they valued most, not to other humans, but to the enduring silence of stone. Among the most haunting images in the world's cave sanctuaries are the handprints. They appear across continents, from Europe to Asia, from Africa to Australia. The gesture is simple: a hand pressed against stone, pigment blown or daubed around it, leaving behind a negative impression. Sometimes palms face outward, sometimes fingers spread wide, sometimes reduced to stubs as if portions of fingers were missing. For tens of thousands of years, these images endure. They are silent declarations of presence, human bodies reaching out across time. The earliest known hand stencils come from Sulawesi in Indonesia, dated to at least 40,000 years ago. In Argentina's Cueva de las Manos, the Cave of Hands, hundreds of overlapping prints cover walls, created over generations. In Spain and France, caves like El Castillo and Gargas contain similar motifs, some dating back more than 35,000 years. The geographic spread is immense, suggesting either a shared ancient tradition or independent invention of a universal gesture. One lesser-known detail is that many hand stencils are found in deep chambers, far from cave entrances. To reach these places requires deliberate effort, torchlight, and coordination. The act of leaving a handprint in such a location suggests intention beyond casual marking. It was not enough to mark stone. It had to be done in the heart of darkness, where the gesture carried weight. The method was straightforward yet effective. Pigments, often red ochre or black manganese, were ground into powder, mixed with water or saliva, and blown through hollow bones or reeds. The artist pressed a hand against stone, then sprayed pigment, leaving a clean silhouette once the hand was removed. In some cases, the imprint is positive, pigment applied directly to the hand and then stamped. Negative stencils, however, dominate. These images resemble shadows or voids, emphasizing absence as much as presence. Unresolved mysteries surround their meaning. Some scholars suggest they were signatures, marking participation in rituals. Others propose they symbolized belonging, identity, or initiation. In caves like Gargas, where stencils include shortened fingers, debates intensify. Were fingers deliberately folded when sprayed, representing symbolic gestures? Or were individuals missing parts of fingers due to frostbite, accidents, or cultural practices? The answer remains elusive. Planetary scale deepens the enigma. The Ice Age climate was harsh, with advancing glaciers and shifting ecosystems. Hands, essential for tool-making, fire-building, and hunting, were also vulnerable to cold. In this context, the repeated depiction of hands could signify reverence for survival itself, the human hand as the instrument of adaptation. By immortalizing it in pigment, early humans may have celebrated their most vital tool. The stencils also create a powerful sense of presence. To stand in front of a wall filled with handprints is to feel surrounded by ancestors. Each print is a frozen touch, a moment when someone placed their flesh against stone. Unlike animal figures, which depict the outside world, hand stencils record direct human contact. They are autobiographical, not representational. They say, "I was here." One small but telling discovery comes from El Castillo Cave in Spain. Among red discs painted on walls, researchers found hand stencils so faint they are nearly invisible. Modern analysis with digital enhancement revealed outlines that had been overlooked for decades. This suggests that many caves hold more hands than we can see with the naked eye, hidden beneath layers of soot, calcite, or darkness. The placement of hands often interacts with cave surfaces. Some appear on protrusions, as if reaching around corners. Others cluster near painted animals, as though framing or consecrating them. In certain cases, prints are positioned high on walls, requiring ladders or scaffolds. This effort implies ritual significance, not casual play. The cave wall itself became a partner in expression, shaped by hands across generations. One unresolved question concerns the social dimension. Did everyone leave handprints, or only certain members of the group? The presence of children's hands suggests inclusivity. At Cueva de las Manos, prints vary in size from small to large, spanning lifetimes. Some scholars argue this points to initiation rites, where young individuals mark their transition into community. Others believe hands represented collective unity, each print adding to a shared mural of belonging. Planetary observation again offers scale. To leave a handprint is to defy time. Unlike footprints in soil, which vanish, hand stencils endure for tens of thousands of years. For humans living in uncertain climates, surrounded by vast natural forces, this permanence may have been profound. The cave wall became a time machine, holding human touch across millennia, even as glaciers advanced and retreated outside. Lesser-known experiments replicate the making of hand stencils. Blowing pigment through a tube produces a mist that settles unevenly, leaving gradients of color. In torchlight, these gradients shimmer, edges blurring, prints appearing almost alive. Some researchers note that overlapping prints create rhythmic patterns, resembling waves or flocks. In this way, the act of making hands may have been performative, accompanied by chanting, sound, or movement. Another mystery lies in the emotional dimension. Was leaving a handprint joyful, solemn, or fearful? Did people laugh, play, experiment? Or did they approach with reverence, aware of the act's permanence? We cannot know. Yet the sheer number of hands suggests repetition, tradition, and significance. They were not isolated experiments, but parts of ritual cycles spanning centuries. A striking example comes from Gargas Cave in France, where more than 200 hand stencils appear. Some include missing fingers, leading to speculation about frostbite. Others suggest deliberate gestures, fingers folded into signs that conveyed meaning. Modern anthropologists compare these to sign languages, where hand shapes carry messages. If so, the stencils might be frozen words, preserved in pigment. The possibility remains open, unproven but tantalizing. On the planetary level, the symbolism of the hand resonates universally. Across cultures, hands are associated with creation, healing, and power. They grasp, shape, protect, and destroy. To press a hand into stone is to merge human agency with geological permanence. It is an assertion that humanity belongs to the earth, inscribing itself onto the deepest walls of time. The echoes of this practice extend far beyond prehistory. In later rock-cut temples of India, handprints appear on walls as blessings or protective marks. In medieval Europe, pilgrims carved or painted hands near shrines. Even today, children press paint-covered hands onto paper in schools and homes. The gesture persists, linking us unconsciously to ancestors who marked cave walls tens of millennia ago. Thus, the mysterious handprints in red ochre speak not only of individuals, but of humanity as a whole. They remind us that long before writing, long before monuments, people sought to leave a trace. Each stencil is a message across time, fragile, simple, enduring. In darkness, under dripping stone and flickering flame, humans reached out with pigment and breath, leaving hands that still reach us now. The Ice Age was not a single block of cold. It was a rhythm of advance and retreat, of glaciers pressing forward and then melting back. Between these shifts, human communities endured extremes of heat and cold, flood and drought. In such unstable times, caves offered continuity. They provided both shelter for life and chambers for ritual. It is here, in the meeting of survival and belief, that the story of sacred caves deepens. Archaeological evidence shows that caves were used not only for ceremony, but also for habitation during the coldest phases of the Pleistocene. At sites across Europe, traces of hearths, tools, and food remains are intermingled with art. The same walls that display painted mammoths and bison also bear smoke stains from cooking fires. Families may have huddled close to flames beneath painted ceilings, their daily needs unfolding in places imbued with ritual power. This dual function raises questions. Did people consciously separate the sacred from the domestic? Or did both flow together? In some caves, decorated panels are located deep inside, far from living areas near entrances. In others, evidence of daily life lies side by side with art. The distinction may have varied by group, season, or climate. What is clear is that caves served as more than simple shelters. They were environments where survival and spirituality merged. One lesser-known case comes from the Gravettian period in Central Europe, where mammoth bone huts stood near cave entrances. These huts provided additional shelter, yet ritual art remained inside. People created layered spaces, practical dwellings outside, symbolic sanctuaries within. This arrangement shows a sophisticated understanding of space, dividing life into zones without fully separating them. Planetary observation reveals the magnitude of conditions faced. During the last glacial maximum, around 20,000 years ago, ice sheets 2 kilometers thick covered northern Europe. Sea levels fell more than 100 meters, exposing new coastlines. Winds swept across barren plains, carrying dust from glaciers thousands of kilometers away. In this environment, caves offered warmth, stability, and protection. To live within them was to inhabit the earth itself, carving out continuity amid global upheaval. At La Garma in Spain, archaeologists discovered a sealed cave level, preserved since the Ice Age. Inside, floors remained untouched, with tools, ornaments, and hearths still in place. Among them lay footprints of adults and children, as if the occupants had just stepped out. Such finds show how daily life unfolded in sacred environments. To modern eyes, the overlap of ritual art and habitation seems surprising. For those who lived then, it may have been natural. Life and belief were not divided into separate categories. Unresolved mysteries surround the coexistence of art and survival. Did families view paintings above their hearths as protective symbols, like guardians watching over them? Or did they distinguish between times of ritual and times of daily activity, shifting behavior depending on context? Without written records, we cannot know. But the evidence suggests flexibility, an ability to integrate sacred practices into the rhythms of survival. Caves also preserved food. Cold, stable temperatures slowed decay. Bones of hunted animals are found deep inside, some cracked for marrow, others stacked in piles. In certain cases, bones of species rarely hunted, such as bears, appear in association with decorated walls. This raises questions about ritual use of remains. Were bears hunted for food or revered as powerful beings? The dual presence of consumption and reverence points once again to the blending of life and faith. A lesser-known discovery comes from Chauvet Cave, where bear skulls were placed deliberately on stone surfaces. One rests on a natural pedestal, aligned with painted walls. Such placement suggests ritual intent, perhaps honoring the animal. Yet the same cave contains hearths and flint debris from tool-making. Here, the practical and the sacred exist side by side, without contradiction. Planetary cycles influenced more than climate. They shaped movement. As herds migrated, human groups followed. Caves near river valleys or rich hunting grounds became seasonal bases. People may have returned year after year, leaving behind new layers of ash, pigment, and bone. Over generations, certain caves grew into cultural anchors, accumulating memory with each visit. The walls became not only canvases, but chronicles of presence. The acoustics of caves amplified their role during times of hardship. When storms howled outside, the deep resonance of chambers may have offered comfort or inspiration. Chants and songs inside echoed like responses from the earth. In such moments, caves embodied both shelter and sanctuary, protecting bodies and nurturing spirits. Another unresolved question concerns the scale of gatherings. Did small families use caves privately, or did larger groups convene for rituals during seasonal migrations? The density of art and deposits in some sites suggests gatherings of many people. In others, Footprints and remains hint at intimate family groups. Perhaps caves hosted both. Large communal events at times, smaller domestic rituals at others. The flexibility of use mirrors the adaptability of humans to changing climates. Planetary observation again widens the view. As glaciers advanced, humans walked across landscapes now submerged. Doggerland in the North Sea, the Sunda Shelf in Southeast Asia. Yet amid these vast shifts, caves remained constant. They were enduring features of hills and cliffs, landmarks in a world of change. For people whose lives depended on mobility, such constants carried weight. They anchored memory and belief across generations. One small but telling example comes from the footprints at Pech Merle in France. Children and adults walked barefoot through soft clay deep inside, leaving tracks that remain today. Torch marks nearby suggest ritual. Yet the prints themselves reveal play, movement, interaction. Life and ritual coexisted seamlessly. The cave was both home and temple, both playground and sanctuary. The dual role of caves also had practical implications. Smoke from hearths blackened ceilings, preserving evidence of long use. Soot deposits allow modern scientists to reconstruct timelines of occupation, showing repeated returns over centuries. These traces confirm that caves were not temporary shelters, but integral parts of cultural landscapes. The symbolic resonance of living inside sacred space cannot be overstated. To raise children beneath painted animals, to cook meals beside stenciled hands, was to embed daily life within cosmic imagery. Each glance at walls reminded families of powers larger than themselves. Each flicker of firelight revived painted forms, turning ordinary evenings into encounters with the sacred. Thus, during the extremes of the Ice Age, caves were more than refuges. They were theaters of life, where ritual and survival intertwined. People warmed themselves by fires, prepared food, shaped tools, and told stories, all beneath ceilings covered in art. In this way, the meeting of ice and faith shaped human resilience. It demonstrated the capacity to integrate the demands of survival with the longing for meaning, weaving both into the same stone chambers. When archaeologists compare the symbols found in caves across continents, they notice striking similarities. Spirals, zigzags, dots, grids, and animal figures recur from Europe to Asia, from Africa to the far islands of Indonesia. These patterns are separated by thousands of kilometers and tens of thousands of years, yet they appear with remarkable consistency. This raises one of the most intriguing questions in the study of early cave sanctuaries. Are these similarities the result of shared ancestry, or did human groups invent similar motifs independently? The first step in addressing this mystery is cataloging the marks themselves. Researchers such as Genevieve von Petzinger have documented geometric signs from caves across Europe. More than 30 recurring motifs appear, including cross-hatching, ladder-like figures, and claviforms, or club shapes. These are not random doodles. Their repetition across sites suggests meaning. When the same pattern appears in France and Spain, separated by hundreds of kilometers, it points to a shared symbolic vocabulary. Yet the surprise deepens when similar motifs are found outside Europe. In Sulawesi, Indonesia, geometric shapes accompany animal paintings. In Australia, Aboriginal rock art includes dots, spirals, and hand stencils similar to those in Argentina's Cueva de las Manos. In Africa, engravings on ochre from Blombos Cave, dating back more than 70,000 years, display cross-hatched patterns nearly identical to later cave motifs. The global spread of these designs suggests a deeper connection within the human mind. One lesser-known detail comes from South Africa's Apollo 11 cave. Small slabs of stone painted with geometric figures, dated to around 30,000 years ago, were found buried in layers of habitation. The portability of these slabs implies that symbols traveled with people, carried across landscapes as part of their cultural toolkit. This raises the possibility that motifs were not confined to caves but formed part of broader symbolic systems, appearing on tools, ornaments, and bodies. Unresolved mysteries remain. Did these motifs arise from a single origin, carried by migrating groups as they dispersed out of Africa? Or are they products of convergent invention, arising independently as humans everywhere experimented with abstraction? The debate continues. Genetic evidence confirms a shared ancestry for all modern humans, but whether symbolic traditions persisted during migration or were reinvented is unclear. Planetary observations provide perspective. During Ice Age migrations, humans crossed continents and adapted to diverse environments. Yet, despite differences in climate and ecology, certain symbolic impulses remained constant. Wherever people lived, they marked surfaces with lines, dots, and hands. This suggests that symbolic thought was not a regional adaptation, but a universal trait of Homo sapiens. The urge to inscribe meaning on stone may be as fundamental as the urge to speak or sing. The distribution of motifs also raises questions about communication. If symbols were shared across groups, did they function like proto-writing? Perhaps dots represented counts of animals, or zigzags symbolized water. Some researchers argue that the signs may have conveyed information about seasons, migrations, or spiritual beliefs. Others caution that meanings cannot be recovered. What looks like a universal code may have varied locally. The truth likely lies between. Certain motifs carried broad significance, while their precise interpretations differed by community. One small but remarkable discovery adds weight to the idea of continuity. At Cosquer Cave in France, accessible only through an underwater tunnel, divers found symbols identical to those at caves hundreds of kilometers inland. During the Ice Age, the entrance lay above sea level, but now it is submerged. The presence of the same motifs in distant and difficult places suggests a robust symbolic network, repeated wherever people gathered. Lesser-known comparisons extend beyond caves. In megalithic art of Ireland, dating thousands of years later, spirals and grids echo Paleolithic motifs. In Native American petroglyphs, similar shapes recur. These parallels hint at deep structures of human cognition, patterns that reappear even when direct cultural links are impossible. The human brain, it seems, gravitates toward certain forms when seeking to express abstraction. The planetary scale of this phenomenon is astonishing. Imagine two groups, one in Ice Age France, another in early Holocene Australia. They never meet, never share language or tools, yet both paint dots and lines on stone. Both trace spirals and hands. Across oceans and millennia, the same gestures emerge. This convergence speaks of shared neurological pathways, brains wired to seek order, rhythm, and meaning through simple geometric forms. Unresolved questions persist about the role of these motifs in ritual. Were they merely decorative, or did they hold cosmological weight? Some propose that zigzags represented rivers or snakes, spirals symbolized journeys, and dots counted days or animals. Others argue they served as abstract markers of identity, linked to clans or groups. Without direct evidence, interpretations remain speculative. What is undeniable is that these symbols carried enough importance to be repeated across generations and landscapes. One fascinating case study comes from Australia's Arnhem Land, where rock art shows yam figures, patterns of lines resembling the roots of plants. These bear striking resemblance to ladder and grid motifs in Europe. While the specific meaning differs, the impulse to abstract natural forms into symbolic patterns is shared. The human mind transforms environment into sign, compressing experience into geometry. Another layer of mystery lies in the combination of animals and abstract motifs. In many caves, animals dominate, yet abstract signs cluster near them. At Lascaux, for example, dots and lines appear beside horses and bulls, sometimes superimposed. Did these symbols comment on the animals, perhaps representing numbers, seasons, or spiritual forces? The dialogue between figure and abstraction suggests a rich symbolic system now lost to us. Planetary forces again contextualize the story. As glaciers expanded, humans moved into new territories, carrying symbols with them. Some motifs may have spread along migration routes, adapting to local traditions. Others may have been reinvented anew, inspired by universal experiences of rivers, stars, or plants. Either way, the persistence of signs across such vast distances underscores the unity of human cognition amid environmental diversity. A lesser-known but illuminating example comes from Camberg in the Czech Republic, where engraved reindeer bones bear patterns of lines and notches. Though portable rather than painted on cave walls, these motifs resemble cave signs. This continuity between media, stone, bone, pigment, shows that symbols permeated daily life, not just ritual chambers. The cave was one stage among many for human abstraction. Ultimately, the similarity of symbols across continents reveals both mystery and certainty. The mystery is meaning. We cannot know what each line or dot signified to its makers. The certainty is impulse, the human drive to inscribe, to leave traces beyond speech and memory. Whether shared from a common origin or invented many times, these motifs testify to the universality of symbolic thought. Thus, the story of symbols across continents shows that the roots of culture extend deeper than any single cave. They lie in the shared architecture of the human mind, expressed through marks that outlast voices, footsteps, and even glaciers. Across time and distance, the same patterns recur, linking us with ancestors who, in darkness, placed their marks upon stone. At the threshold of many caves, where darkness yields to the outside world, archaeologists notice a curious pattern. Entrances often align with features of the sky: sunrise or sunset at solstices, the path of the moon, or constellations visible at certain times of year. Though debated, this observation suggests that the sacred spaces underground were not entirely severed from the heavens above. Instead, they linked both realms, darkness and light, earth and sky. Evidence for such alignments appears in multiple regions. At Lascaux, the shaft containing the famous Birdman panel faces toward a valley where the constellation of the Pleiades would have been visible during the Ice Age. Some researchers propose that dots painted above certain animals may represent star clusters. At Chauvet, other panels include arrangements of points that resemble Orion's belt. Whether these are deliberate or coincidental remains unresolved, yet the possibility of cosmic reference is striking. One lesser-known case comes from El Castillo Cave in Spain. A red disc painted more than 40,000 years ago has been interpreted by some as a solar or lunar symbol. Nearby hand stencils cluster as if framing the disc, perhaps emphasizing its importance. The entrance of the cave opens to the west, capturing the setting sun. As torchlight illuminated the interior, The cycle of day and night may have been echoed in ritual. Sunlight fading outside, firelight glowing inside. Planetary observation expands this theme. During the Ice Age, skies were clearer than today, unpolluted by modern lights. Stars blazed with intensity. For migratory hunters, constellations were guides, marking seasons and directions. To connect cave sanctuaries with celestial events would have been natural. The same people who followed rivers and herds also followed the stars, linking underground rituals to skies above integrated cosmic cycles into sacred practice. Archaeoastronomy, the study of ancient alignments, provides further insight. In later times, megalithic monuments such as Stonehenge and Newgrange align precisely with solstices. The idea that similar attention to the heavens existed earlier, in cave cultures, is plausible. Though evidence is fragmentary, entrances oriented to specific horizons may reflect deliberate choice. Even if not perfectly aligned, the awareness of celestial cycles is deeply human. An unresolved mystery is whether the dots and lines near animals in caves truly depict stars. Some argue that arrangements of 7 dots beside aurochs at Lascaux mirror the Pleiades. Others see them as decorative. Without firm proof, the debate remains open. Yet the consistency of dot clusters across regions suggests more than random placement. Perhaps they encoded both earthly and celestial knowledge. Lesser-known discoveries support this view. At Kapova Cave in Russia's Ural Mountains, alongside mammoths and horses, researchers found clusters of red circles. The cave entrance faces south, allowing sunlight to reach deep inside at certain times of year. The combination of orientation and symbols hints at seasonal significance. Rituals may have marked transitions in the year, aligning underground sanctuaries with celestial calendars. Planetary cycles again provide context. As glaciers advanced and retreated, seasons grew extreme. Winters were long, summers short. For survival, timing mattered, knowing when herds migrated, when rivers thawed, when plants returned. Stars offered reliable signals. If cave rituals tied to celestial events, they may have reinforced calendars critical for life. The sacred and the practical intertwined, as always in Ice Age cultures. The interaction of firelight and starlight deepened the experience. As people gathered in caves at dusk, the fading glow outside would give way to flickering torches within. The rhythm of day and night mirrored the rhythm of surface and underground. Entrances became thresholds not only between light and darkness, but between earthly and cosmic cycles. One small but evocative discovery comes from the Dordogne region of France. Researchers found that several painted caves align with valleys where solstice sunrises or sunsets would have been dramatic. Though not conclusive, the pattern suggests intentional placement. To enter such caves during seasonal transitions may have carried symbolic meaning, linking human gatherings with cosmic turning points. Unresolved questions remain about the role of the moon. Lunar cycles, lasting about 29 days, would have been easily observed. Some cave motifs, such as sequences of dots, may correspond to lunar counts. At La Pasiega in Spain, series of red marks suggest tallying. Were these records of moon phases, hunting days, or ritual cycles? The evidence is incomplete, but the possibility is compelling. On a planetary scale, such practices connected humans to cosmic rhythms. As glaciers locked oceans and altered climates, the sky remained constant. Stars rose and set, seasons returned, the moon waxed and waned. In a world of change, the heavens provided stability. By linking cave sanctuaries to celestial patterns, humans aligned themselves with cosmic order. The combination of underground imagery and celestial alignment creates a paradox. Caves are hidden, enclosed, and dark. The sky is open, infinite, and bright, yet humans connected them. By aligning entrances or embedding star-like motifs, they fused opposites. This synthesis reflects a profound worldview that the sacred encompasses both darkness and light, both underworld and heavens. A lesser-known but fascinating parallel comes from later rock art in North America. At Chaco Canyon, petroglyphs align with solar and lunar cycles, projecting light and shadow patterns on carved surfaces during solstices. Though much younger than Paleolithic caves, these examples show continuity of human interest in connecting art, stone, and sky. The impulse to align Earth with cosmos spans cultures and millennia. Archaeologists caution against overinterpretation. Not every dot is a star, not every entrance a calendar. Yet the cumulative evidence, alignments, motifs, orientations invites reflection, even if not precise astronomy. The awareness of cosmic cycles shaped human experience. Caves became microcosms, echoing the macrocosm of the universe. Planetary observation closes the loop. As Earth tilts on its axis, seasons shift, glaciers grow and melt, rivers flood and dry. Human groups, fragile against these forces, sought patterns in the sky. By linking caves to stars, they found stability in cycles larger than themselves. The underworld of stone and the heavens of light became two halves of a single whole. Thus, when darkness meets the stars above, the story of cave sanctuaries reaches cosmic scale. Entrances framed celestial events. Dots mirrored constellations. Rituals aligned with seasons. Whether deliberate calendars or symbolic echoes, these connections reveal the breadth of human vision. Long before temples or observatories, caves united earth and sky, shadow and starlight, survival and meaning. There are caves that feel alive with evidence of ritual, paintings bright in torchlight, hearths blackened by smoke, footprints pressed into clay. Yet there are others that tell a different story. These are the caves that, after periods of use, were left in silence. The fires died out, entrances collapsed, groups moved on. What remains is frozen in time, abandoned sanctuaries where art and offerings endure untouched for millennia. Archaeologists notice that many decorated caves show limited periods of activity. A chamber might be used for a few centuries, perhaps visited sporadically afterward, and then fall into disuse. At Chauvet, in France, magnificent panels of lions and rhinos were created around 36,000 years ago. Yet evidence of later use is sparse. After the artists departed, the cave was sealed by a landslide, preserving paintings in pristine condition. Silence lasted tens of thousands of years until rediscovery in the 20th century. This pattern raises questions. Why were caves abandoned? Did groups move away permanently? Or did cultural traditions shift? Some suggest climate played a role. As glaciers advanced or retreated, migration routes changed. Valleys once rich in herds became barren. Communities followed resources, leaving sanctuaries behind. Others argue that abandonment was deliberate, part of ritual closure. A cave might serve its purpose for a generation, then be left untouched, considered complete. One lesser-known case comes from La Garma in Spain. Archaeologists discovered a sealed level of the cave containing footprints, tools, ornaments, and hearths from around 15,000 years ago. The entrance collapsed soon after abandonment, trapping the scene in perfect preservation. Among the finds were painted panels still vivid, hearths with charcoal, and decorated objects scattered as if recently left. No later visitors disturbed the site until modern discovery. The impression is of sudden departure, followed by millennia of stillness. Unresolved mysteries surround such abandonments. Were they abrupt, triggered by catastrophe, or gradual, as groups shifted territories? Some caves show clear signs of sealing, suggesting intentional closure. At Chauvet, the landslide was natural, but in other sites, entrances may have been deliberately blocked with stones. If so, this suggests a conscious act of leaving sacred places in silence, perhaps to protect their power or mark an ending. Planetary changes provide context. As climates shifted, rivers changed course, vegetation zones migrated, and animals followed. Human groups, dependent on these patterns, moved accordingly. Caves once central to ritual networks might lie far from new hunting grounds. Distance made return impractical. Abandonment, in this sense, was not rejection, but adaptation. Still, the art remained, preserved in darkness, awaiting rediscovery long after the culture that created it was gone. A small but telling discovery comes from the Cave of Cosquer in France. Its entrance lies today beneath the Mediterranean Sea, accessible only through an underwater tunnel. During the Ice Age, sea levels were much lower, and the cave stood on dry land. Rising seas eventually drowned the entrance, sealing the paintings inside. Horses, ibex, and even penguins painted on its walls remained hidden until modern divers found them. Here, abandonment was not cultural but planetary, the result of ocean rise transforming landscapes. The silence of abandoned caves carries meaning of its own. When use ceases, the place becomes a time capsule. Tools lie where they were dropped. Footprints remain in clay. Paintings fade only slowly. Unlike open-air sites, caves protect fragile traces. Their abandonment thus secures memory. What was once ritual becomes record. What was once living practice becomes evidence for distant descendants. One lesser-known but fascinating case is the Cave of Tito Bustillo in Spain. Here, a chamber filled with vivid paintings of horses shows evidence of intense use for a time, followed by centuries of emptiness. Later groups did not repaint or disturb the walls. The cave's role ended, yet the art remained untouched. Such pauses in use are as revealing as periods of activity. They suggest that meaning changed with generations, that sanctuaries were not permanent but temporal. Unresolved questions linger about the emotional dimension of abandonment. Did groups leave reluctantly, mourning sacred places, or did they depart without hesitation, carrying rituals to new landscapes? Archaeology cannot recover emotions, but the deliberate sealing of some caves implies reverence. To leave a place untouched may have been to honor it, acknowledging its completed role in communal life. Planetary cycles again remind us of the scale of change. Between 30,000 and 10,000 years ago, climates shifted dramatically. Ice advanced, then melted, reshaping coasts and valleys. Rivers flooded, plains dried, forests grew and receded. Amid such instability, caves stood still, unchanged. Abandonment did not erase their significance. It froze them in time, creating archives of human history across ages. Another layer of meaning emerges when considering the continuity of abandonment. Later groups often respected earlier sanctuaries, avoiding defacement. At Altamira, for example, Upper Paleolithic paintings remained untouched for thousands of years, even as new groups occupied nearby valleys. This suggests a recognition of old sanctity, even without direct cultural memory. The art may have been seen as the work of ancestors or spirits, deserving preservation through absence. One remarkable discovery comes from Chauvet, where fossilized footprints of a child and a wolf remain side by side in clay. They date to around 25,000 years ago, thousands of years after the main paintings were made. This suggests that occasional visits continued, but without new art. The cave's role had shifted, from active sanctuary to silent monument. Such traces capture the transition between use and abandonment, between ritual and memory. Planetary perspective emphasizes the fragility of human presence. For all their symbolic weight, cave sanctuaries were only briefly active compared to geological time. A few centuries of painting or ritual are followed by tens of thousands of years of silence. Caves remind us that human history is fleeting, set against the vast endurance of stone. Yet, abandonment is not loss. It is part of the cycle. The silence that followed ensured preservation. Without it, soot and footsteps might have obscured paintings. Artifacts might have been repurposed. Rituals might have erased earlier traces. Instead, silence kept them intact, passing them forward across ages. Thus, the long silence of abandoned temples is not emptiness, but continuity. It connects past and present, preserving fragile gestures for future discovery. In every untouched panel, every sealed chamber, we glimpse the paradox. Absence protects presence. The people who left never knew we would return, yet through abandonment they ensured we could. Long after the painted chambers of Ice Age Europe fell silent, another tradition of sacred caves began to flourish, this time in South Asia. Along river valleys and trade routes of the Indian subcontinent, artisans and monks carved entire monasteries into living rock. These were not temporary shelters or ritual hollows. They were vast complexes, hewn with patience from cliffs, transforming natural stone into architectural wonders. Among the most famous are the Ajanta and Ellora caves, whose walls still carry echoes of chanting monks and shimmering pigments. The Ajanta caves, begun around the 2nd century BCE, stretch along a horseshoe bend of the Waghora River in western India. Carved into basalt cliffs, they contain more than 30 chambers, some simple cells, others elaborate halls. The earliest structures are modest, with plain interiors used for meditation and assembly. Later caves become increasingly ornate, their walls covered in murals and sculptures depicting the life of the Buddha, celestial beings, and mythic stories. The transition mirrors the evolution of Buddhist devotion itself, from austere beginnings to rich visual culture. Ellora, carved a few centuries later, surpasses even Ajanta in scale. Extending over 2 kilometers of cliff, it houses Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain monuments side by side. The most astonishing is the Kailasa Temple, a freestanding structure cut entirely from solid rock. Workers removed more than 200,000 tons of stone to create it, carving downward from the cliff top. The result is a temple as large as a cathedral, with towering pillars, intricate reliefs, and sculpted deities, yet all still connected to the mountain that birthed it. One lesser-known detail is the precision of excavation. At Ajanta, corridors are aligned to maximize natural light from entrances. Pillars are carved with exact symmetry, despite being cut by hand with iron chisels. At Ellora, drainage systems guide monsoon rains away from interiors, preserving murals. Such engineering shows that cave temples were not improvised shelters, but planned architectural projects requiring generations of labor. Unresolved mysteries surround their creation. How were such massive undertakings organized without written blueprints or advanced machinery? Did royal patrons supply endless labor, or did monastic communities sustain construction gradually? Inscriptions provide only fragments of answers. Some caves bear donors' names, merchants, monks, kings, suggesting collective support. Others remain anonymous, their makers forgotten. The sheer ambition of carving entire worlds into rock still puzzles historians. Planetary context emphasizes the endurance of these monuments. Basalt cliffs formed millions of years earlier by volcanic eruptions became the canvas for human devotion. Seasonal monsoons eroded valleys, exposing vertical walls perfect for excavation. In this geological setting, humans found opportunity, transforming volcanic remnants into sanctuaries of faith. Rock, once shaped by planetary fire, was reshaped by human hands into places of meditation. The murals of Ajanta are among the finest surviving examples of ancient Indian painting. Using mineral pigments bound with organic materials, artists depicted scenes of courtly life, mythic episodes, and compassionate Buddhas. Colors remain vivid: deep blues from lapis lazuli, reds from ochre, greens from malachite. Some pigments were imported across long trade routes, linking these caves to networks that stretched from Central Asia to the Mediterranean. The caves thus embody not only devotion, but global exchange. One striking discovery within Ajanta is the depiction of foreign figures, traders wearing garments unlike local styles, carrying exotic goods. Their presence on walls testifies to the cosmopolitan nature of India's trade routes. The caves were not isolated monasteries, but hubs where local and foreign influences converged. In this sense, cave temples were both spiritual centers and markers of global connectivity. The architecture itself carries symbolism. Many Ajanta halls are chaitya grihas, prayer halls with vaulted ceilings carved to resemble wooden structures. Ribs cut into stone mimic timber beams, though no wood is used. This continuity from earlier wooden temples shows a cultural memory translated into rock. The permanence of stone ensured that traditions once ephemeral became eternal. At Ellora, the juxtaposition of Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain caves reveals a landscape of coexistence. Though carved across centuries, the proximity of monuments shows overlapping traditions. Pilgrims could walk from a Buddhist monastery to a Hindu shrine, then to a Jain hall, all within the same cliff. This spatial arrangement reflects India's pluralistic religious history, where sacred landscapes often overlapped rather than excluded one another. Unresolved questions remain about ritual use. How many monks lived in Ajanta at its height? Were ceremonies conducted daily or primarily during festivals? The caves contain cisterns, kitchens, and sleeping cells, suggesting permanent habitation. Yet the vast mural cycles hint at grand rituals meant for visiting patrons. Balancing domestic monastic life with public ceremony remains an open topic for researchers. Planetary scale again offers reflection. As empires rose and fell, as climates shifted and rivers changed course, the caves endured. When dynasties collapsed, murals faded, and vegetation crept over entrances, the sanctuaries remained hidden. Ajanta lay abandoned for nearly a millennium until rediscovery in the 19th century. Inside, paintings preserved in darkness revealed scenes of devotion centuries old. Silence once again preserved memory, just as in Paleolithic caves. A lesser-known aspect is the soundscape of these temples. Archaeologists and acousticians note that halls with vaulted ceilings amplify chants. A single monk reciting sutras could fill chambers with resonance, creating atmospheres of transcendence. The interplay of architecture and sound echoes earlier Paleolithic practices, where echoes shaped ritual. Though contexts differ, the human fascination with resonance in stone endures. One small but telling discovery at Ajanta involves unfinished caves. Some halls were abandoned mid-carving, with rough walls and incomplete pillars. These reveal the process of excavation, marks of chisels, outlines of intended sculptures. They remind us that not every vision was completed, that ambitions sometimes exceeded resources. Yet even unfinished, these chambers carry meaning, testifying to the human impulse to shape stone into sanctity. The planetary endurance of these sites is humbling. For more than 2,000 years, they have weathered monsoons, earthquakes, and human neglect. Paintings still glow, sculptures still stand, pillars still rise. Rock carries memory longer than paper, longer than wood. In this way, Ajanta and Ellora continue the legacy of Paleolithic caves, stone as vessel of memory, silence as preserver of devotion. Thus, the rock-cut wonders of India extend the tradition of sacred caves into historical times. They reveal continuity and transformation, from small ritual hollows to vast monasteries, from flickering torchlight to halls lit by daylight, from intimate family rituals to imperial-scale patronage. Yet the essence remains. Stone, darkness, and silence frame human longing for meaning, devotion, and connection to forces beyond. Far from the tropical rivers of India, in arid landscapes carved by wind and time, humans turned cliffs and valleys into sanctuaries once again. Across the deserts of Jordan and the volcanic plateaus of Cappadocia in Turkey, cave architecture reached new forms. Here, caves were not only ritual chambers but entire cities, housing communities that blended spiritual devotion with daily life. From Petra's rose-red facades to Cappadocia's honeycombed hills, these sanctuaries show how the ancient instinct to shape stone into meaning persisted in diverse environments. Petra, perhaps the most famous of these desert sanctuaries, lies hidden within rugged gorges of sandstone. Known today as the Rose-Red City, it flourished more than 2,000 years ago under the Nabateans, a people who mastered desert survival through water management and trade. Petra's facades, carved directly into cliffs, include tombs, temples, and halls of gathering. Though exposed to sunlight rather than hidden in darkness, they continue the tradition of turning stone into sacred architecture. The treasury, with its towering columns and intricate carvings, is perhaps the most iconic. Yet beyond its grandeur, Petra's essence lies in its integration of the sacred with the everyday. Streets, markets, and houses intermingled with temples, blurring boundaries between ritual and life. One lesser-known detail of Petra is its extensive water system. Channels, cisterns, and dams captured scarce rainfall, directing it into storage for dry seasons. This infrastructure allowed tens of thousands to live in an arid valley. The very presence of such engineering demonstrates how sacred and practical functions overlapped. Temples stood beside reservoirs, shrines near canals. Water, once again, was central to sacred landscapes, as in Paleolithic caves where dripping springs guided ritual. Unresolved mysteries surround Petra's rituals. Inscriptions and remains suggest devotion to deities such as Dushara and Al-Uzza, but details of ceremonies are scarce. Some tombs may have doubled as temples, blending funerary and religious functions. Archaeologists debate whether open courtyards above the city were used for astronomical observation. The alignment of certain monuments with solstice sunrises suggests possible connections between Petra and celestial cycles, echoing earlier traditions of caves linked to stars. Planetary context frames Petra within broader trade networks. located along caravan routes connecting Arabia, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean. Petra was a hub of exchange. Spices, incense, silk, and gems passed through, bringing wealth and cultural influences. The city's sanctuaries thus embody not only local devotion, but global connectivity. Just as Ajanta's murals reflect distant trade in pigments, Petra's architecture reflects a crossroads of civilizations. Northwest of Petra, across the Anatolian plateau, lies Cappadocia, a landscape unlike any other. Volcanic eruptions millions of years ago blanketed the region with ash that hardened into tuff, a soft rock easily carved. Wind and water sculpted the tuff into towers and cones, creating natural formations known as fairy chimneys. Into these, humans carved dwellings, churches, and monasteries, transforming the terrain into a labyrinth of sanctuaries. Cappadocia's cave churches, dating from late antiquity and the Byzantine era, preserve vivid frescoes of biblical scenes. Christ Pantocrator, saints, and angels gaze from walls, their colors bright despite centuries underground. Monks hollowed out chapels with domes and apses, echoing the architecture of surface basilicas but entirely cut from stone. Entire underground cities, such as Derinkuyu and Kaymakli, extend for multiple levels, housing thousands of people during times of invasion. One lesser-known feature of Cappadocia is its acoustics. Narrow corridors amplify chants, while domed chambers create resonance similar to stone cathedrals. Archaeologists studying these spaces note that sound shaped experience as much as sight. Hymns sung within echo in layered tones, creating a spiritual atmosphere that continues traditions first glimpsed in Paleolithic caves. Unresolved mysteries persist about how communities organized life in these vast subterranean networks. Ventilation shafts supplied air, wells provided water, and kitchens with soot-blackened ceilings reveal daily life. Yet how long people stayed underground, weeks, months, or years, remains debated. What is certain is that spiritual devotion guided design. Churches appear on upper levels, while deeper chambers served as storerooms or refuges. The blending of survival and ritual echoes the Ice Age caves where art and habitation coexisted. Planetary forces once again provided both challenge and opportunity. Cappadocia's volcanic past created landscapes of tough cliffs and chimneys, fragile yet workable. Rain eroded valleys, while humans reshaped them further, carving sanctuaries that adapted geology to culture. These caves stand as reminders of how planetary processes, eruption, erosion, climate, intersect with human creativity. One small but telling discovery in Cappadocia is the presence of carved crosses scratched into doorways and walls. These simple marks, sometimes overlooked, signal protection and blessing. They show that not every act of devotion required grand frescoes. Sometimes a single gesture of faith carved into stone sufficed. Such modest inscriptions echo Paleolithic hand stencils, both marking human presence with enduring simplicity. The scale of Cappadocia's underground cities is immense. Derinkuyu descends more than 60 meters, with tunnels wide enough for animals, presses for wine, and even chapels carved at depth. Archaeologists estimate that up to 20,000 people could shelter there. Though built in later history, these spaces continue the ancient theme: stone as protector, cave as refuge, sanctuary, and temple in one. Planetary observation widens perspective again. Across deserts, valleys, and volcanic plateaus, humans repeatedly turned stone into sacred space. Whether sandstone cliffs of Petra or volcanic tuff of Cappadocia, geology dictated form, Yet devotion shaped function. The continuity is striking. From Paleolithic caves painted with ochre to Byzantine chapels glowing with frescoes, the impulse to sanctify darkness with meaning endures. Unresolved questions remain about cultural transmission. Did knowledge of rock-cut architecture travel across regions, or did it arise independently? Some argue for influence via trade routes, linking India's Ajanta and Ellora to Petra and Cappadocia. Others emphasize local adaptation to environment. The truth may include both, human universals meeting regional creativity. One lesser-known but evocative aspect of Cappadocia is its integration with landscape. Monasteries perch on cliffs, blending with rock formations. Villages cluster around carved sanctuaries, creating a continuity between natural and human architecture. This seamlessness mirrors earlier traditions where caves were both natural and cultural, both shelter and temple. The silence of Petra's tombs and Cappadocia's frescoed churches today mirrors earlier abandonments. As empires declined and populations shifted, sanctuaries fell quiet. Sand buried Petra. Cappadocia's valleys grew empty of monks. Yet the structures remained, preserved by stone. As with Chauvet or Lascaux, absence ensured endurance. Modern rediscovery brings them back into human awareness, bridging centuries of silence. Thus, Petra, Cappadocia, and other desert sanctuaries expand the story of cave temples beyond prehistory into civilizations of trade, empire, and faith. They show how stone continued to serve as canvas and refuge, shaped by geology and human devotion alike. Whether under desert sun or volcanic cliff, the sacred impulse carved permanence into earth itself. Across the mountains of northern China, where desert winds sweep in from the west and rivers carve long valleys, lie some of the most extraordinary cave sanctuaries ever created. Unlike the Ice Age hollows of Europe or the volcanic dwellings of Cappadocia, these were carved intentionally as monuments of faith, shaped with chisels into cliffs that stretch for kilometers. The Mogao Caves near Dunhuang, the Longmen Grottoes near Luoyang, and the Yungang Caves in Shanxi together contain tens of thousands of statues and murals, representing a cultural achievement of astonishing scale. They also reveal how sacred caves became part of global networks of exchange, linking China with India, Central Asia, and beyond along the Silk Road. The Mogao Caves, known as the Caves of the Thousand Buddhas, were begun in the 4th century CE. Carved into a cliff face above the Dachuan River, they eventually expanded into nearly 500 chambers. Each is unique, decorated with painted murals and filled with statues of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and celestial beings. Murals cover more than 45,000 square meters, illustrating not only religious themes but also daily life, landscapes, and travelers. For centuries, monks, pilgrims, and artisans added new chambers, turning the site into a living archive of devotion. One lesser-known detail of Mogao is the hidden library cave, sealed in the 11th century and rediscovered in 1900. Inside were more than 40,000 manuscripts, paintings, and textiles, preserved by desert dryness. The texts include Buddhist sutras, Confucian works, Taoist scriptures, contracts, music, and even the world's earliest printed book, the Diamond Sutra of 868 CE. This treasure trove reveals that the caves were not only sanctuaries of art, but also repositories of knowledge, linking religion with culture, politics, and commerce. The Longmen Grottoes, further east, developed later under imperial patronage. Stretching along cliffs beside the Yi River, they house more than 100,000 statues, from tiny carvings to colossal Buddhas towering over 17 meters high. Carved between the 5th and 9th centuries, Longmen reflects the wealth and power of the Northern Wei and Tang dynasties. Inscriptions reveal donations from emperors, nobles, and commoners alike, showing how devotion united society across classes. Unlike Paleolithic caves, where anonymous artists painted in secrecy, here names of patrons are carved for eternity, linking piety with prestige. The Yungang Caves, carved earlier in the 5th century, stand as one of the first great Buddhist cave complexes in China. Dozens of grottoes contain immense statues, influenced by Indian and Central Asian styles. Some Buddhas wear flowing robes reminiscent of Gandhara art, blending Greco-Roman naturalism with local traditions. This fusion shows how the spread of Buddhism carried not only faith, but also artistic forms across continents, reshaping local landscapes into international sanctuaries. Unresolved mysteries remain about the logistics of construction. How were so many statues carved with hand tools? And how were pigments acquired in such quantities? In some grottoes, traces of lapis lazuli reveal long-distance trade, as the stone came from Afghanistan. Vermilion, malachite, and gold leaf adorned walls and sculptures. The sheer coordination required suggests entire workshops of artisans working for decades under imperial and monastic direction. Yet details of their lives remain mostly invisible, their names lost even as their artistry endures. Planetary forces again shaped context. The Silk Road connected China to Central Asia, Persia, and the Mediterranean, carrying goods, ideas, and faith. Pilgrims brought Buddhist scriptures from India. Traders carried pigments and silk, and monks painted and carved stories that merged distant influences. The caves thus embody global exchange, sanctuaries built at the intersection of cultures. Just as Ajanta's murals show foreign traders, Mogao's manuscripts reveal a cosmopolitan community, where Indian sutras were translated into Chinese and Central Asian music was notated for ritual use. One lesser-known feature of Longmen is the presence of secular carvings alongside religious figures. Scenes of dancers, musicians, and animals appear among Buddhas, showing that devotion was not only solemn, but also celebratory. Festivals, feasts, and cultural practices all found their place in stone, reflecting the vibrancy of life around sacred centers. This mingling of sacred and secular mirrors the dual roles of caves in earlier times, both sanctuaries and spaces of community. The acoustics of Chinese grottoes also shaped ritual. Large chambers with vaulted ceilings amplified chanting, while smaller niches offered intimate spaces for prayer. Pilgrims arriving from distant lands would hear sutras echoing across valleys, mingling with the sound of river water. As in Paleolithic caves, sound enhanced sacred atmosphere, uniting natural resonance with human devotion. Unresolved questions concern the role of these sanctuaries in pilgrimage networks. Were they primarily local centers, or did they attract international visitors? Records suggest both. Mogao lay on the Silk Road, welcoming travelers from India, Tibet, Persia, and beyond. Longmen, near imperial capitals, served dynasties directly. Yungang reflected the ambition of rulers seeking to link themselves to Buddhist authority. The balance between local piety and global pilgrimage shaped each site uniquely. Planetary context adds another dimension. The harsh climate of Dunhuang, with desert winds and little rain, preserved murals for centuries. At Longmen, humidity and vegetation eroded carvings more quickly, reminding us that geology and climate shape survival. In all cases, Stone once again became the vessel of memory, enduring longer than wood or paper. A small but telling discovery at Mogao involves graffiti carved by travelers. Alongside monumental murals, tiny inscriptions, record names, prayers, or simple notes from pilgrims passing through. These humble marks echo Paleolithic handprints, individuals leaving traces of presence. Whether an Ice Age hunter pressing ochre-stained fingers on stone or a Silk Road trader scratching his name into a wall, the impulse is the same: to connect personal life with enduring stone. The global networks reflected in Chinese cave sanctuaries extend beyond religion. Textiles, medicines, astronomical charts, and even instruments traveled along the same routes. Manuscripts from the library, cave record recipes, contracts, and histories, showing that spiritual and practical life intertwined. Caves, once symbols of isolation, became centers of connection, binding continents together. Unresolved mysteries also linger about the eventual decline of these sites. Why were some caves sealed, others abandoned? At Mogao, the hidden library may have been closed to protect its contents during invasion or political change. At Longmen, imperial decline ended major carving projects. Natural erosion, neglect, and later looting left scars. Yet, even in ruin, sanctuaries endured, preserved by stone. Planetary reflection brings the story back to scale. For tens of thousands of years, humans shaped caves for ritual, first with torches and ochre, then with chisels and murals. From Sulawesi to Spain, from Ajanta to Mogao, the impulse is constant: to carve meaning into stone, to fuse survival with devotion, to link Earth with cosmos. The Chinese cave temples stand as grand monuments in this continuum, evidence of both global exchange and local creativity. Thus, the secrets beneath East Asian mountains reveal not only the spread of Buddhism, but the persistence of a human instinct older than history. Stone walls, shaped by geology, became canvases for faith. Murals and manuscripts, statues and chants, all converged in grottoes that linked China to the wider world. In their silence today, they still whisper of journeys across deserts, prayers carried by wind, and the enduring human desire to carve eternity from rock. Over thousands of years, the role of caves shifted. What began as secluded hollows, visited by small groups with torches and pigment, gradually transformed into destinations for travelers from distant lands. Shrines once hidden in darkness became waypoints for pilgrims, marked on maps, remembered in legends, and celebrated in inscriptions. The path from hidden sanctuaries to pilgrimage networks shows not only the endurance of sacred caves, but also the expansion of human spiritual geography. The earliest stages of this transition appear in India. At Ajanta and Ellora, the rock-cut monasteries that began as quiet places for monks evolved into bustling complexes. Pilgrims arrived from across the subcontinent, leaving donations recorded in inscriptions. Some came to meditate, others to seek blessings, and still others to admire the artistry of murals and sculptures. In this way, monasteries balanced inner devotion with outer visibility. The caves no longer served only monks, they became part of regional religious landscapes. One lesser-known detail is the role of donors in shaping decoration. At Ajanta, inscriptions record merchants who funded murals of Jataka tales, linking their generosity to stories of the Buddha's past lives. These acts of patronage tied spiritual merit to visible art, ensuring that devotion reached future generations. Caves thus became communal projects, shaped not only by ascetics, but by society at large. In China, The Mogao caves show a similar trajectory. Initially, hermits carved small meditation chambers. Over centuries, entire dynasties supported expansion, turning the site into a grand pilgrimage destination. Monks copied sutras for visiting pilgrims, who in turn left offerings or inscribed prayers. By the Tang dynasty, Mogao was a cosmopolitan hub filled with travelers from Persia, India, and Central Asia. The caves, once hidden along desert cliffs, became a node in a vast network of pilgrimage and trade. Unresolved mysteries remain about how pilgrims experienced these spaces. Did they enter in silence, chanting, or with offerings in hand? Did they move sequentially from chamber to chamber, or gather in central halls? Archaeology provides fragments, footprints, manuscripts, and inscriptions. Yet the full texture of pilgrim life, smells of incense, sound of sutras, weight of gifts carried across deserts, remains beyond recovery. Planetary observation adds scale. As empires expanded and routes stabilized, humans moved farther, connecting landscapes once separated by oceans of desert or mountain. Caves became fixed points in these networks, like stars guiding travelers. Just as constellations offered navigation by night, cave sanctuaries offered spiritual orientation by land. Pilgrims knew where to go, following paths carved by generations. In Europe, later Christian traditions also sanctified caves. Sites associated with saints, such as the Cave of St. Michael at Monte Gargano in Italy, drew pilgrims from across the Mediterranean. These were not painted Ice Age chambers, but natural hollows repurposed into chapels. The continuity of cave sanctity, however, is striking. Long after Paleolithic rituals ended, humans still sought meaning in stone recesses, now aligned with new faiths. One small but telling discovery comes from inscriptions left by medieval pilgrims in Cappadocia. Carved names and crosses appear on walls, simple marks of passage. They echo hand stencils of the Paleolithic, the impulse to leave a personal trace in sacred space. Whether a monk in Byzantine Anatolia or a hunter in Ice Age France, the gesture of "I was here" persisted. Pilgrims thus connected their journey to a continuum of human presence. Unresolved questions persist about the balance between local devotion and international pilgrimage. At Mogao, for instance, murals depict not only Buddhist themes, but also depictions of foreign envoys. Were these intended for local monks or for visiting dignitaries? Similarly, at Ellora, Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain temples coexist. Was this for local pluralism or to attract pilgrims from multiple traditions? The interplay between local practice and global visibility shaped sanctuaries into layered spaces, rich with meaning. Planetary forces also shaped pilgrimage. Desert oases, monsoon rains, and mountain passes dictated routes. Mogao thrived because it lay at a Silk Road junction, where caravans stopped for water and rest. Ajanta prospered along trade paths linking cities. Petra's temples rose where caravans converged in Arabia. Caves became sanctuaries precisely because they lay at intersections of geography, trade, and faith. The transformation into pilgrimage sites also altered how caves were maintained. In Paleolithic times, chambers could fall silent for millennia. In historical eras, steady streams of visitors required upkeep. Murals were repainted, statues repaired, chambers expanded. Sacred caves became living institutions, their silence broken by footsteps and chants, their darkness pierced by oil lamps. This continuity sustained them for centuries, but also made them vulnerable to overuse, damage, and eventual decline. One lesser-known example of this dynamic comes from Dunhuang. By the 10th century, Mogao contained hundreds of caves, but maintenance strained resources. Some murals were painted over, others neglected. When political instability struck, monks sealed the library cave, perhaps to protect sacred texts. Pilgrimage sustained sanctuaries, but also tied them to the fortunes of states and trade networks. When routes shifted, caves were abandoned once again. The story of pilgrimage caves reveals both continuity and transformation. Continuity lies in the human impulse to travel towards sanctity, to move bodies across landscapes for spiritual reward. Transformation lies in scale. What began as intimate family rituals in Ice Age chambers expanded into networks spanning continents. Pilgrimage turned caves from hidden hollows into crossroads of civilization. Planetary reflection underscores the vastness of this shift. Glaciers once determined where humans could walk, pressing groups into valleys and caves. Later, empires and trade networks determined pilgrim routes, carving roads across deserts and mountains. Yet the sacred geography remained tied to stone. Whether deep in darkness or exposed to sunlight, caves continued to anchor faith in the earth itself. A small but evocative parallel appears in the Christian catacombs of Rome. Though not natural caves, these underground burial chambers became pilgrimage destinations in late antiquity. Visitors walked corridors lined with tombs, prayed at shrines of martyrs, and left inscriptions. The atmosphere, dim, echoing, filled with devotion, echoed the ancient cave experience. The instinct to sanctify underground space proved enduring across cultures and religions. Thus, the transformation from hidden shrines to pilgrim paths reveals the adaptability of sacred caves. They absorbed new traditions, welcomed new travelers, and connected distant worlds. From Argentina to India, from France to China. The story is the same. Humans carved journeys into stone, turning darkness into waypoints, silence into destinations. Across continents and millennia, from the hand stencils of Sulawesi to the murals of Ajanta, from the colossal Buddhas of Longmen to the hidden manuscripts of Dunhuang, the tradition of sacred caves endured. What began as simple hollows, entered with torches and offerings, became vast temples and cosmopolitan centers. Yet, even after centuries of activity, many were abandoned, sealed, or forgotten, leaving behind only silence. Today, standing at their thresholds, we can sense not only what is visible, but also what remains unresolved. These enduring shadows of stone and silence are the legacy of the world's oldest cave temples. The power of these spaces lies partly in their durability. Stone resists time more than wood, cloth, or bone. Pigments shielded from light remain vivid after tens of thousands of years. Statues carved into cliffs endure monsoons and dust storms. Manuscripts sealed in caves wait for discovery centuries later. Caves are not only sanctuaries of ritual, but also sanctuaries of preservation. They carry memory farther than most human structures, extending voices of the past across geological spans. One lesser-known example of this endurance comes from Borneo's Lubang Jeriji Saleh Cave, where animal paintings more than 40,000 years old remain intact on limestone walls. These images predate many famous European works, reminding us that artistic devotion was never confined to one region. The global distribution of such sites underscores the universality of the human impulse to sanctify stone. Yet their preservation is fragile, threatened by water, erosion, and human intrusion. The balance between endurance and vulnerability is constant. Unresolved mysteries surround the meanings carried in these sanctuaries. Scholars debate whether geometric signs, record astronomical cycles, whether hand stencils mark identities, whether animal figures carry shamanic visions or hunting records. At Ajanta and Mogao, interpretations multiply. Do murals depict pure devotion, political propaganda, or both? Were library caves sealed for protection, or as ritual acts of closure? Answers remain partial, leaving us with questions as enduring as the art itself. Planetary forces frame these mysteries. Caves exist because of geology. Limestone dissolved by water, volcanic tuff eroded by wind, sandstone cliffs carved by rivers. Their formation spans millions of years, far exceeding human history. Into these ancient spaces, humans brought torches, pigments, chants, and prayers. Each act of painting or carving is brief against geological time. Yet when preserved, it extends across millennia. In this sense, caves embody the intersection of planetary and human timescales, stone shaped by earth, then reshaped by devotion. The silence of abandoned caves amplifies their meaning. Once rituals ceased, chambers lay dormant. No footsteps echoed, no flames flickered, no chants filled the air. Yet within silence, art remained. This paradox, absence preserving presence, gives cave sanctuaries their unique aura. They are at once empty and full, abandoned yet inhabited by memory. One small but telling discovery highlights this aura. At Chauvet, a single footprint of a child remains near torch marks from more than 20,000 years ago. No art surrounds it, only the impression of movement in clay. Yet that print speaks as powerfully as murals or statues. It testifies to presence, to life, to a moment frozen in stone. Cave sanctuaries remind us that the human story is not only grand rituals and empires, but also fleeting steps, preserved by chance. The global spread of cave sanctuaries also reflects the spread of humanity itself. As groups migrated from Africa into Asia, Europe, and the Americas, they carried with them the instinct to mark stone with meaning. Whether through ochre hands, carved crosses, or frescoed Buddhas, the pattern is continuous. This suggests that the urge to sanctify darkness is embedded deeply in human cognition. Caves offered not only physical shelter but symbolic grounding, linking the seen and unseen, the mortal and eternal. Unresolved questions extend into the present. Why do humans continue to visit caves, even when no longer central to faith? Tourists walk through Lascaux replicas. Pilgrims climb to Ajanta's cliffs. Divers brave tunnels to glimpse Cosker's drowned art. The attraction persists, even when meanings are obscured. Perhaps the mystery itself is part of the draw. The sense of standing in a place where countless lives left traces, where time layers without erasure. Planetary reflection brings us to scale once more. Ice sheets advanced and retreated. Oceans rose and fell. Forests grew and vanished. Civilizations rose with dynasties, empires, and trade networks, then declined. Through it all, caves remained. Their endurance is not eternal. They crumble, flood, or collapse. But relative to human lifespans, they seem timeless. To enter a cave is to step outside ordinary time, to stand within geological memory. One lesser-known discovery at Mogao emphasizes this continuity. Amid thousands of murals and manuscripts, archaeologists found depictions of constellations, maps of heavens rendered on stone. These connect the underworld of caves with the sky above, uniting opposites. Across cultures, the same theme recurs: caves as portals, linking Earth to cosmos. Whether through dots resembling stars at Lascaux or solstice alignments at Petra, Caves served as mirrors of the universe. The endurance of cave sanctuaries also invites reflection on their fragility today. Human presence, climate change, and industrial activity threaten preservation. Breath alters humidity. Lamps encourage mold, and rising seas submerge entrances. The same desire to enter and witness that preserved caves in memory now risks their destruction. Modern stewardship requires restraint, protecting silence while allowing knowledge to grow. The paradox continues. To preserve, we must limit our presence. Yet even if some caves fade, the tradition they represent endures. Across history, humans have always sought sanctuaries, temples, churches, mosques, shrines. The cave is the earliest, the first architecture of faith. Its essence persists wherever stone, darkness, and ritual converge. From Paleolithic chambers to Buddhist grottoes, from desert tombs to subterranean catacombs, the sacred impulse continues. Thus, the enduring shadows of stone and silence remind us of continuity. The same instinct that guided hunters into Chauvet guided monks into Mogao, pilgrims into Ellora, and traders into Petra. The same geology that formed caves through water and wind shaped sanctuaries for devotion. The same silence that preserved footprints, preserved manuscripts, murals, and statues. Planetary perspective offers a final thought. Caves are not eternal, but neither are glaciers, oceans, or mountains. All shift with time. Yet within these changes, human presence lingers. A hand stencil pressed against stone, a chant echoing in a chamber, a manuscript sealed in darkness. These small gestures carry across ages, reminding us of humanity's place in the vast rhythms of Earth. In the end, cave temples remain both mystery and mirror. They hold questions we cannot answer and truths we cannot deny. They endure because stone endures, and they speak because silence speaks. What began as hidden hollows continues as monuments of faith, linking us with ancestors whose shadows still touch the walls. The journey through the world's oldest cave temples carries us across vast stretches of time. From the first flicker of fire on stone to the grandeur of rock-cut monasteries, humans returned again and again to darkness, carving meaning into silence. In each chamber, the same pattern repeats: a torch raised, a hand pressed, a tool abandoned, a mural painted. Then departure, and silence once more. What endures is not certainty, but mystery. We do not know precisely why handprints spread across continents, or why blades were offered to stone. We cannot fully explain why certain caves became sanctuaries, while others remained untouched. Yet this uncertainty is part of their power. The unanswered questions invite reflection, allowing each generation to find meaning anew. Planetary rhythms remind us of our place in this long story. Glaciers advanced and retreated. Seas rose and fell. Rivers shifted course. Empires rose, carved sanctuaries, and fell into silence. But caves, shaped first by earth and then by devotion, remained. They hold within their walls both fragility and endurance, pigments that fade at a touch, but also stories that last for tens of millennia. To walk into a cave temple today is to enter a space where time folds. The voices of ancestors are absent, yet their traces remain. Lines on walls, statues in niches, manuscripts in sealed chambers. In silence, we hear echoes. In darkness, we glimpse continuity. Perhaps that is the final gift of the caves, a reminder that humanity has always sought connection to each other, to the earth, to the cosmos. and in stone sanctuaries shaped by patience and faith. That search is still visible.